There's a kind of emptiness that's hard to talk about. It's not depression, exactly. It's not sadness, either. It's the feeling that something is missing. Even when your life looks fine from the outside, you still feel like a hollow shell walking through your days. You smile, you work, you do what's expected. But inside, there's a strange silence. Not peaceful, not quiet, just empty. And maybe you've asked yourself, what's wrong with me? Why don't I feel whole? Carl Jung had a radical answer, one that still shakes the foundations of modern psychology. He believed this emptiness isn't a flaw. It's a signal, a message from the soul that you've lost connection with something vital. Your inner truth, yourself. Because at some point, you stopped living from your center and started living from your surface. The world taught you how to perform, not how to feel. It taught you how to fit in, not how to be real. And now, here you are, looking successful, functioning well, but feeling nothing. If this resonates with you, then stay with this video, because what you're about to hear might finally explain the feeling you could never put into words. Jung believed that the soul isn't just a poetic idea, it's a psychological reality. And when we feel deeply empty, it's not because we lack pleasure, success, or stimulation. It's because we've lost contact with that soul, with our inner compass, our truth, our essence. But why would we ever abandon something so vital? Because most of us were taught early on that being ourselves was not safe. As children, we learned which parts of us were acceptable and which parts made people uncomfortable. We learned to shrink, to adapt, to hide our real feelings, just to keep the love flowing, to keep the peace, to belong. So we silenced the voice inside. We disconnected from our anger, our dreams, our needs. And we put on masks, smiles, roles, personalities that helped us survive. Jung called this adaptation the persona, the version of ourselves we construct to meet the expectations of the outer world. And the more we identify with the persona, the more distant we become from the soul. The emptiness isn't random. It's the cost of abandoning your authenticity. But here's the thing. The soul never disappears. It waits, quietly, patiently, until the day you're ready to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Think back to your childhood. How often were you asked, what do you feel? What do you truly want? What do you believe? Probably not often. Instead, you were told how to behave, how to succeed, how to make others proud. You were rewarded for being polite, obedient, and productive, not for being honest, messy, or emotionally real. Slowly, you stopped asking yourself what mattered to you. You learned to suppress your emotions, deny your instincts, and follow the script. Because following the script felt safer than being rejected. But the soul doesn't live in scripts. It lives in truth. It lives in depth. And when we ignore it long enough, we don't just feel lost. We feel empty. This is why Carl Jung believed that true healing isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about reconnecting with the self you abandoned, the one buried beneath the performance. And this is what this channel is here to explore. Not surface psychology, but soul work. So if this speaks to something deep inside you, consider subscribing. Not for algorithms, but for your own inner journey. Because the path back to yourself is the only one that leads to wholeness. You can build a life that looks perfect from the outside and still feel like a ghost inside it. The job, the relationship, the image, even the applause. They might impress everyone else, but they won't fill the void in your chest, because your soul doesn't care how things look. It only responds to what's real. Jung warned that the more we chase external validation, the more we drift from our inner truth. And the further we go, the more we feel like something is missing. We think we need more success, more change, more doing. But what we actually need is reconnection, not with more goals, but with ourselves. This is why some people collapse after achieving everything they thought would make them happy. They realize they climbed the ladder, but it was leaning against the wrong wall. If you've ever felt that strange mix of I have everything and I feel nothing, you're not alone, you're not broken, you're just being called inward. Because the emptiness isn't a flaw, it's a message, a whisper from the soul saying, I'm still here, come find me. One of the reasons we miss the call of the soul is because it doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It doesn't demand. It speaks in silence, in dreams, in sudden waves of emotion that make no logical sense. Have you ever felt deep sadness while doing something normal? Have you ever had an ache in your chest with no clear cause? Or felt disconnected in a room full of people? That's not weakness. That's not your mind being dramatic. That might be your soul trying to reach you, trying to say, this life doesn't reflect who you truly are. Jung believed that the soul often appears in moments of discomfort, not because it wants to punish us, but because it wants to awaken us. And when we numb it, distract ourselves, or keep performing, the emptiness only grows. Because the soul doesn't disappear when we ignore it. It retreats. And we're left wondering why nothing ever feels real anymore. So if you feel empty, don't just ask what's wrong. Ask what's been forgotten. Ask what parts of you had to go quiet just to keep going. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is, if I'm not in pain, I must be okay. But numbness isn't peace. It's just silence. Not the kind that soothes you, the kind that haunts you. You don't feel joy, but you don't feel despair either. You're just existing, functioning, fulfilling roles, and maybe deep down you've accepted that this is all life is. But Jung would challenge that. He'd say the numbness is a symptom, a sign that you've gone too long without living from your core. He wrote, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Because doing that means waking up the parts of you you've buried. The parts that felt too wild, too sensitive, too intense. But here's the paradox. Those are the exact parts that make you feel alive. What we repress to survive eventually becomes what we need to recover. And if you want to stop feeling empty, you have to start getting honest with what you feel, what you need, and who you are underneath the mask. This journey isn't easy, but the alternative is staying numb in a life that was never really yours. Reconnecting with your soul isn't romantic. It's raw, it's uncomfortable, and at times, it feels like falling apart. Why? Because before you can be who you truly are, you have to unbe everything you became to survive. That means shedding the identity you carefully built, letting go of roles that once made you feel safe. Admitting that some parts of your life, the job, the relationships, the routines, were never meant for the real you. Carl Jung believed this process was essential. He called it individuation, the journey of becoming whole by integrating the lost parts of the self. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you to change. And yes, it can feel lonely. You might outgrow people who only knew your mask. You might question everything you once believed. You might even wish you could go back to not knowing. But this is the cost of awakening. And on the other side of the discomfort is something rare, a life that feels real, a self that finally fits. The emptiness doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're being invited into a deeper kind of life. You might think that reconnecting with your soul will instantly bring peace, but sometimes it brings fear first. Because wholeness, real wholeness, feels unfamiliar when you've spent your life split in half. You've been taught to value logic over intuition, achievement over meaning, pleasantness over truth. So when your soul starts to stir, you might doubt it. You might feel guilt for wanting more. You might even feel grief for the years spent living a life that wasn't fully yours. But Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That emptiness you felt, it wasn't fate. It was a consequence of living disconnected from your own inner life. And now that you're beginning to see clearly, you have a choice. Go back to numbness and call it peace, or move forward into the unknown and call it truth. This isn't about perfection, it's about integration. The messy parts, the forgotten parts, the hidden parts, they all belong. They are the pieces of your wholeness. And once you begin to welcome them, the emptiness loses its grip. Because you're no longer pretending, you're finally becoming. Here's the truth most people never hear. You don't have to invent your true self. You don't have to build it from scratch. You just have to remember it. Because the version of you that felt deeply, that created freely, that spoke honestly, that loved without pretending, that self still exists. It's buried beneath years of roles, expectations, and survival strategies. But it's never gone. Carl Jung believed that the self, the totality of who we are, always remains whole. Even when we fragment, even when we forget. The journey isn't about becoming better. It's about becoming real. And this might mean doing things that seem small from the outside. Saying no when you used to say yes, sitting in silence instead of performing. Letting yourself cry, not because you're weak, but because you're finally listening. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to find yourself. And to do that, you must stop searching outward and start turning inward. That aching emptiness is not a curse. It's a compass. And if you follow it with honesty and patience, it will lead you home. The emptiness you feel isn't a void to be filled by things outside of you. It's an invitation, a call from your soul to come home. Home to the parts of yourself you've been afraid to face. Home to your truth, your shadows, your light. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This means embracing all of you, not just the parts that shine, but also the parts that scare you, the parts you hid away to survive. Because wholeness isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. And when you begin this journey, you'll notice something strange. The emptiness slowly fades. replaced by a deep sense of peace. Not the silence of numbness, but the quiet confidence of a soul at rest. This journey isn't quick. It's not easy. But it's the most important journey you will ever take. If you're feeling empty today, remember, you're not alone, you're not broken, you're awakening. And the soul that's been waiting for you all along, it's ready to guide you back home.